Good morning. It's Sunday here in Virginia and elsewhere, and as you can tell, it's comfortable. You know, it's the tiniest bite of cold in the air, but it's really nice otherwise. Well, we're heading into the home stretch. The 2 points for the presidential determination that remain are the vote of the Electoral College on Monday and the vote counted before the Senate on January the 6th. So that's what we're talking about that's left. What can we expect on Monday? It should be a snore, meaning there's no contest like there was in 1800, 1824, 1960, referring to elections in which things were so close it was difficult to determine. The issue remaining is the Electoral College. Will it have a bunch of faithless electors, meaning electors who were chosen to vote according to the public vote, but decide for one reason or another, that is political advantage and power, to vote for someone else. Now, let me roll back a little bit. The Electoral College is subject to the appointment by the individual states, according to the second article of the Constitution, and an amendment to the Constitution 11 to cure a couple of problems with the original. The state gets to appoint as many Congress people as they have, and then one for each of the two senators. And that's the electoral vote that we talk about. So you have two senators and one congressman, you have three. So that's the number. Now, those of you who've fooled around with this process consider it more an honor to be chosen an elector, because you're usually commended by your party, and you may be chosen at, different kinds of conventions for this to happen. But you don't really get to do anything except to cast your vote as the voters do. And the states are winner take all. So whoever wins, that slate of electors. So let's say there are two senators and one congressman. The three electors, the Democrats said they were for Biden. The Republicans said they were for Trump. The Democrats won in this hypothetical state. And so those three are expected to vote for Biden, as the voters did. Now, there are more than 30 states that have this view of faithless electors, meaning that you have to vote as the public does. But there are most of the other states, maybe all of them, they believe that you can't switch votes. So the votes are locked in. So the only strategy for Trump that would contradict these rules by statute and by constitution would be to convince an elector to be faithless, to move from, say, voting for Biden to vote for Trump. Now, that seems highly unlikely, but that's what they'd have to do. And if there was some funny business there, then that would roll into how the Vice President of the United States, which would be Pence, would count the votes when they're received officially on January the 6th. So those are the two marks left in our presidential election. I think they will go fine, meaning I don't think there'll be any controversy. Everybody will be concerned, and everybody will be sucking their thumbs about how this can happen. But in the end, I think it's going to go the way you and I think it should go, which is it's going to go for Biden. The second thing is that even as I'm saying this, Trump is going on saying, I won. He's saying, I won. Now, what does that evoke? That evokes, to me, what goes all the way back to Stalin, and probably before that historically. And he created the Russian term, the equivalent of disinformation. You just say something, you keep saying it, and you repeat it, and if your megaphone is louder than everybody else, then that becomes the perception, and that's what the belief system is of the public, or at least they're deterred. There's ink in the water, and that's what we have going on here. They've begun the 2024 campaign and the midterm campaign of 2020 by telling this lie to undermine and try to discredit Biden. Now, Biden has made this difficult. The courts have made this difficult. the public failure of the advocates for Trump get a D maybe for disinformation, because they haven't been effective, because our democracy is still vibrant enough that we're getting the information we need to have. Now, but what about all those people who believe this crazy nonsense, this disinformation? There are a couple of examples that are allegories that I think help us understand what we're dealing with. H.G. Wells, one of my favorite writers, he wrote a thing, and it was about in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And it's a kind of a novella, it's short, it's beautifully written. But a man with sight comes into an area where everybody is blind. And so he figures he can help them. He has this advantage. But over time, they decide that he's acting this way because he has sight. And so they're going to cure him by blinding him. And he can't escape this area where this is going on. So he lives in the mountains afterwards. A more famous example is Plato's allegory of the cave, in which people are locked into seats and they're looking at a wall in front of them in a cave. And behind them there's a fire. And behind that fire are people projecting images onto the wall. And so the reality of the people in the cave is the image on the wall, which is untrue. Now, one of the members in this allegory manages to get out of his chain, which is holding his neck and his face straight on and his shoulders back. And he gets out of the cave with some pain, and he comes out, he sees the light of day, and he sees what reality is, critical thinking. So, like most of us, when we make a discovery, maybe we want to share it. So he goes down into the cave to try to tell others what is the truth, and they can't encompass it. That's what we have now. And this is the sinister aspect of what dictatorships do. They control the information, and people, knowing nothing else, and perhaps not knowing how to critically think, take that information and act upon it. So, in our hypothetical with Mr. Trump, say, if people believe what he says, then is there an injustice? But in America, we have so many sources. We have to think of this as somewhat different. That is, they know they're telling a lie to the public, their so-called leaders, the 126 that signed the petition. And their objective is to have power, but they're not prepared to embrace an agenda that will get the majority of Americans. So they have to tell lies to get the vote to be in the representative government to foster an agenda that in fact disserves the public. Now, what are we going to do about it? Well, right now, it seems to me the reflexive nature of our system is working despite this invasion of these undemocratic, misleading individuals who seek to disrupt and create a dystopia so that they can take control. It's hard to believe we're saying that in America, but what alternative explanation is there for it? So, okay, the good news is we shall overcome. I'm the song. And it's a hymn, and this is Sunday, so we're in my cathedral of trees without leaves. So have a good day, be well, and let's see how the Electoral College does tomorrow. Bye-bye.